Okay, so we're going to do a quick pattern flight. So the aircraft is fully configured for flight right now. We're ready to go on runway 10 at NAS Jacksonville. So carb heat's off, flaps are up. We should have the fuel pump on. We do. Okay, we're ready to go. Alright, so for takeoff, we add in some power, check the engine instruments. Green, green, green. Gyro looks good, amps looks good, full power, let's go. Okay, in 17 Whiskey, it's 50 to 60 rotate, so we're 50 to 60, we're going to pull up. And then we're going to climb it out at 85. Good bit of right rudder as we're on the climb out here. Pitch that nose up, get us to 85, I'll trim back a little bit for that. Isn't it nice having a trim wheel, it's not up above your head. Alright, 400 to 500 feet or so, we'd expect tower to call us and say, 17 Whiskey, left down when approved. Okay, great. Start that left turn, about 20 degrees angle of bank is good. Once we start getting close to 1,000, we want to start leveling off. We're almost on our crosswind here. Okay, there's 1,000, power's going to come back to 22. Keep that nose down. Okay, we're on a crosswind, 3 to 5 seconds. We'll go ahead and start our turn to the downwind. As we're turning downwind, maintaining 1,000 feet, we're going to start our before landing checklist. So landing light on, carb heat on, brakes tested, fuel pumps on, and fuel is on a proper tank, airspeed 80 and flaps as required. Read your checklist. It's easier than memorizing it. It's better than memorizing it. Okay, so we're going to fly our downwind here. Keep that nose down. There's our runway. We're just parallel to it. Alright, we're just abeam the edge of the runway. When we're abeam, carb heat's already on, power back to 17. Flaps, 1 notch. Okay? Let that airspeed decay to 80, and then we start our descent. So we're still at 1,000, airspeed's going down, airspeed's going down. Already starting to descend a little bit. I'm looking for the end of that runway to be about 45 degrees behind our wing. It's not quite there yet. Airspeed's about 90, so I need to trim up a little bit more. And there we go. There's 45 degrees. Whoops, we need to start turning left. Okay, so we're banking left. Airspeed needs to stay 80. As we're turning on base, we go ahead and put in our second notch flaps. And we start thinking, are we high, are we low, are we just right? Actually, it looks pretty good. We're actually a little further on base than I like to be. A little stutter there in the simulator. Need to pull up to get our airspeed a little better. Hold us on this perpendicular base for a little bit. Alright, we're getting a little low here, and that's because my power wasn't back to 17, it was down too low. So I need to add in some power, right hand stays on the throttle. Pull up to get our airspeed to 80. Remember, pitch controls airspeed, power controls altitude. I'm pitching for 80. I'm going to go ahead and get us on an extended centerline early. Once you're on the extended centerline, it's a lot easier to stay there, so don't aim for the number, aim for a very early extended centerline. There you go, still thinking, am I high, am I low, am I just right? And I also want to start transitioning my airspeed to a lower airspeed, so flaps are going to come down to that last notch. Flaps are full now. Airspeed now is 70. That's my target. So I'm using power to control my altitude. Power's a little low. I'm going to add a little bit more. And I'm using pitch just to hold the airspeed. The pitch is not used to aim at all. It's just used for airspeed. Airspeed came up. Now it's coming back down. Okay. We did a good approach, we're at the correct airspeed at the correct spot. Now we transition to landing. So we come down to about here, power goes to idle, and we do our round out. So we keep the plane level just a few feet above the ground. As the plane starts to settle, we pull up some more. Plane settling down, we pull up more, and eventually we can't, and there's our landing. Okay, so for a touch and go, flaps come up, carb heat off, full power. Nice and smooth on the power. Now power's full. Use that rudder to keep us on center line. 50 to 60 rotate. Right rudder as we go. Keep that ball centered. And we're going to climb out at 85. So this is what I want you to be able to practice, is doing the full power, keeping the ball centered the best you can. 400 to 500 feet, we're going to start our left turn. You'd assume that Tower would say, you know, 17 whiskey left downwind approved. And that is an NAS Jacks thing. It's not really a realistic thing that any other tower would do. They tell you what pattern to take before you even take off. Checking over the window. There we go. There's our perpendicular. Go ahead and roll out about here. Keep the climb going. Climb going. That's 3 seconds in the crosswind. And also, there is 1,000 feet, so power comes back, and we're going to let the nose come down to maintain our altitude right at 1,000.
Yeah, because for the solo, that's just doing 3 like landings, right?
That's it. That's your first solo. It's 3 landings. All right, we're parallel with the runway now. A little high, so I'm going to push that nose down. Maybe a little not quite parallel, so I'll keep us coming back to the right. We're on downwind. We need to do our before landing checklist. So carb heat comes on, landing lights on, fuel pumps on, flaps is required, airspeed will be 80. Tower hopefully gives us a clear for the option, and we call that back. We're abeam our intended point of landing now. So carb heat's on, power back 17. We're in the wide arc, so flaps come up 1 knot. Now we let our airspeed decay to 80. And as it's doing that, when we do that, we'll start descending. Watching the runway go about 45 degrees behind our wing, and then we start our left turn. Airspeed's back, it's pretty close to 80, and we've started our descent. Pull up a little bit, get that airspeed under control. Now as we're turning base, flaps come to our second notch. When we look outside, we say, are we high, are we low, we just right.
Okay.
It looks pretty good for now. I'll leave everything exactly where it is. Airspeed's high, so I gotta pull up to correct my high airspeed. And now I'll turn on final here. Looks like I'm a little high, so I'll pull the power back a little bit. Airspeed looks good at 80. So I can pull up to slow down, and I can push down to slow up, to speed up. If I'm high, I can pull the power to idle, or power back some, and that'll help us come down a lot faster. I can also add my last notch of flaps. That'll also help us get down a lot faster. That right hand on throttle so that I can make adjustments as I need to. As I'm getting close here, I don't need 80 miles an hour anymore. I want to start transitioning as I'm getting very close to about 70. So I'm going to let the nose come up a little bit. Okay, so there's another good approach. We're at about 70 miles an hour in a good position to land. So now we start transitioning into landing. As we get very close to the ground, power comes to idle, and we start our round out. There's our round out. We're parallel with the runway. Now it's the flare, where our eyes go to the end of the runway, and we pull up anytime the plane starts to settle, and there we go. As the plane settles, I just pull up more and more. And we'll make that one a full stop and call it good.